Deep inside the golden African savanna, under a sky so blue it looked freshly washed, 3 lion cubs were causing chaos again. Their names were Piku, Miku, and Tinku. And if you thought baby lions spent their day learning to roar majestically, well, these 3 spent their days trying to prove who could make the silliest mistake. And strangely, they were very good at it. One bright morning, Piku, the self-declared leader of the trio, stood on top of a small rock and cleared his throat. He believed he was born to be a king, and kings needed grand speeches. "Listen up, soldiers," he announced proudly, even though none of them were soldiers. Miku copied him instantly, puffing his chest out. "Yes, sir, Captain King Commander Boss Piku." Tinku saluted so hard he hit his own forehead and fell into a bush. A squirrel living inside that bush peeked out and sighed. These cubs were back. "All right," Piku continued. "Today we practice roaring so loudly that the whole savannah knows the future kings are here." The 3 cubs lined up, shook their tiny shoulders, took a deep breath, and meep! That was Piku's roar. Boop! That was Miku's roar. Tinku's roar was, well, Tinku sneezed and fell backward, again. A nearby zebra, overhearing the cubs, laughed so hard she nearly tripped over her own legs. The cubs didn't know this, but lion roars only develop at 2 or 3 years old. But they were determined. "No problem," Piku said confidently. "Maybe we need inspiration. Let's watch a real lion roar." Their father, Sultan, the most dramatic lion in the entire kingdom, was sleeping nearby. He wasn't just sleeping. He was sleeping like he was auditioning for a snoring championship. His snores shook the grass, birds complained, trees vibrated, even the sunlight looked annoyed. The cubs crept close, preparing to observe his roar, but Sultan suddenly made a strange noise in his sleep. The yawn was so big the cubs screamed, ran in circles, and bumped into each other like confused popcorn kernels. Then they lay on the ground, dizzy. "Okay?" Piku said when he could finally stand up straight, "Maybe roaring is too advanced. Let's learn hunting." The other 2 nodded enthusiastically. They were not allowed to hunt yet, of course, but learning was allowed. Or at least, Piku decided it was. They spotted the world's slowest tortoise munching leaves. "Target locked," whispered Miku dramatically. "Attack formation," shouted Piku. Tinku pounced first, but he misjudged the distance, flew over the tortoise completely, and landed inside a muddy puddle. His face popped out, covered in mud and weeds. "Did I catch something?" he asked. "Yeah," said Piku. "You caught embarrassment." Miku then tried crawling silently toward the tortoise, but he was crawling so slowly that a butterfly landed on his back and took a nap. Finally, Piku leaped, missed, and rolled downhill like a fluffy potato. The tortoise watched them with the same expression teachers have when students give very wrong answers confidently. "Children these days," the tortoise muttered and continued chewing. Just when the cubs realized they were terrible hunters, a loud laugh echoed across the savannah. It was the mischievous monkey Chicky, the prankster everybody knew, but nobody admitted they liked. "Wow!" Chicky shouted from a tree. "Are you practicing to become comedians? Because your hunting attempt was the funniest thing I've seen in months." Miku puffed his cheeks. "We weren't being funny." "Really?" Chicky tilted his head. "Then why did your brother fly into a puddle like a falling coconut?" Tinku lifted his muddy paw. "It was a tactical move." "Sure," Chicky said, "and I'm the king of the jungle." "You're not the king," Piku corrected him. "My papa is, and then someday I will be, and then I will ban teasing." "Ah," Chicky laughed. "Then better work on those royal skills, your highness." But before Piku could argue, a loud rumble shook the savannah. Not a roar, not thunder, not their father snoring again. It was the elephants, and they were running. Not calmly, not slowly. They were rushing as if something was wrong. "What's happening?" Tinku asked, suddenly worried. The ground trembled, dust rose, the birds flew in panic. Even Chicky lost his smile. Something big was happening. The cubs hid behind a fallen log as the lead elephant, Auntie Gadra, shouted, "Move! A huge river surge is coming. The heavy rains last night filled the river, and the water is overflowing." The cubs gasped. Their den was safe, but the nearby baby animals who liked playing by the river were not. Without thinking twice, the cubs bolted toward the river. Chicky shouted after them, "Hey, wait! You're just babies!" But lion cubs don't think about danger when someone needs help. The river had swollen, and the water was rushing fiercely. A baby antelope was stuck on a rock, crying for help. "Hold on," Piku yelled. "We're coming!" "Piku, what's the plan?" Miku asked. Piku blinked. He had not thought about that part. But that didn't stop him. With surprising bravery, Piku climbed down a shallow edge and grabbed a long stick. Miku and Tinku held onto Piku's tail to keep him steady. "Grab the stick!" Piku shouted. The baby antelope leaned forward, stretching its tiny hooves. The water splashed hard. The cubs struggled. Their paws slipped, but they didn't let go. Finally, the baby antelope grabbed the stick. The cubs pulled with all their strength, and after a final loud "Hey!" the baby was safe. Exhausted, the cubs fell on their backs, panting. The elephants, zebras, birds, buffaloes, everyone who saw the rescue cheered loudly. Chicky swung down from a branch. "Okay, I take it back," he said with a proud smile. "You might not roar yet, or hunt, or walk straight, or think before acting, but today, you proved you have the heart of true lions." The cubs beamed proudly. When they returned to the den, their father Sultan was wide awake. He had seen everything. He lifted them gently with his huge paws. "My brave cubs," he said softly. "A lion is not defined by how loud he roars or how strong he is. A true lion protects the weak." The cubs snuggled against him, feeling the warmth of his mane. That night, when the stars glittered above them like tiny lamps, the cubs felt different inside. Stronger, braver, kinder. And just before they fell asleep, Piku whispered, "Guys, tomorrow we practice roaring again." Tinku mumbled sleepily, "Please no." And the jungle echoed with soft giggles as the moon shone gently over the future kings who were finally starting to grow, not just in size, but in heart. The next morning, the savannah woke under a warm sunrise, but the lion cubs woke under something much heavier. Tinku's tail on Piku's face and Miku's back leg kicking both of them in his sleep. "Get your leg off my nose!" Piku yelled, scrambling out of the pile. "Oops," Miku said, wiping drool from his mouth. "I was dreaming I was chasing a donut." "What's a donut?" Tinku asked, yawning. Miku blinked. "I have absolutely no idea, but it was delicious in my dream." Before Piku could ask more, their mother, Queen Rani, arrived. She was elegant, graceful, and absolutely terrifying when annoyed. "Children," she said with a soft but powerful voice, "today is training day." All three froze. Training day meant real practice, not falling into puddles, not chasing their own tails, not roaring like confused birds. It meant work, hard work, discipline, and possibly carrying heavy sticks, which Tinku hated. "But Piku complained. "We saved a baby antelope yesterday. Can we skip training as a reward?" Ronnie gave him that look, the one that said, "Nice try." But no, Sultan approached too, stretching like a giant sleepy cat. The cubs saluted. "Good morning, King Papa Sir." "Why am I suddenly so many titles?" Sultan asked. "Makes you sound royal," Tinku explained. "And important. And heavy," Miku added. Sultan sighed. "All right, little tornadoes," he said. "Today we learn important lion skills. Balance, awareness, teamwork." The cubs nodded. "Good," Ronnie said, "because the great Savannah Games begin tomorrow." Every cub's eyes widened. The Savannah Games were the biggest event of the year, where young animals competed in fun challenges, running races, obstacle courses, water jumps, and the most famous event, the jungle relay. "We're joining?" Piku gasped. "If," Ronnie emphasized, "you take today seriously." So the practice began. First was balance training. Sultan placed a long fallen log on some stones. "Walk across it," he instructed. "Easy," Piku boasted as he stepped onto it, only to wobble like a noodle in a windstorm. Miku tried next, but he got distracted by a butterfly and walked straight off the log. Tinku managed 2 whole steps before sneezing himself into a somersault. Sultan held his head. "This," he said dramatically, "is why lions get stressed." Next was awareness training. Ronnie hid behind bushes and made soft movements to test if the cubs could detect her. But the cubs' senses worked, unusually. "Do you hear that?" Piku whispered. "Yes," Miku whispered back. "It's like grass talking?" "No," Tinku said confidently, "it's the sound of destiny." It was, in fact, their mother moving leaves. They failed that exercise. Then came teamwork training. Sultan placed a heavy branch on the ground. "Lift it together," he said. The cubs got ready. 3, 2, 1, lift. Nothing moved. Not even a millimeter. "Again," Sultan said. 3, 2, 1, lift. The branch didn't budge, but the cubs' butts went up in the air. "One last time," Sultan encouraged. 3, 2, 1, crack! The branch snapped instead of lifting, and all 3 cubs fell backward, rolled downhill, bounced off a rock, and landed in the exact same mud puddle Tinku fell into yesterday. The puddle seemed to be their destiny. As they sat there, muddy, exhausted, smelling like wet socks, something unexpected happened. Ronnie smiled. Sultan smiled. And both parents clapped their paws proudly. You improved, Ronnie said. Improved? Piku shouted. We broke the branch. Exactly, Sultan replied. That branch was thicker than yesterday's. You were stronger today. The cubs blinked. Wait, Miku said slowly. Does that mean we're getting better? Yes, Ronnie said, because you're trying. For the first time, the cubs stood tall, not because they were pretending to be kings, but because they felt something new, confidence. That night, animals from every corner of the savannah arrived for the Savannah Games. Gazelles, warthogs, meerkats, young cheetahs, baby elephants, everyone had gathered. The moon was bright and torches flickered in the wind. The cubs looked at the huge crowds and swallowed nervously. Guys, Piku whispered, I suddenly feel like my stomach is doing cartwheels. Same, Miku said. Is this fear? No, Tinku replied. This is what happens when you eat too many berries. You ate one berry, Miku said. It was a powerful berry, Tinku insisted. The announcer, a flamboyant peacock wearing leaves like a cape, spread his feathers dramatically. Welcome, everyone! Let the Savannah Games begin! The crowd cheered so loudly the stars probably heard it. The first event was the sprint dash. The cubs weren't built for sprinting like cheetahs, but they entered anyway. Ready, set, go! Cheetah cubs took off like rockets. The lion cubs took off like slightly confused potatoes. Miku tripped. Piku crashed into him. Tinku tripped over both. They finished last, but the crowd still clapped because their fall was so spectacular it looked like acrobatics. The second event was the high jump. Elephant calves were surprisingly good. Gazelles were incredible. The lion cubs attempted the jump. Piku got over the bar by accident because he sneezed mid-jump. Miku bumped into the pole which bounced him upward, and Tinku didn't jump at all. He walked around the bar proudly as if that counted. The crowd laughed and clapped again. But the biggest event, the one they secretly dreamed about, was still left, the jungle relay. The rules were simple. Work as a team, run across obstacles, solve a mini-puzzle, then cross the finish line. The lion cubs took their positions. We may not be fast, Piku said. We may not be smart, Miku added. We may not be balanced, Tinku contributed. Tinku, the other two yelled. Sorry, Tinku said, trying to be realistic. But, Piku continued, we are brave and we don't give up. The drum sounded. Go! Piku ran first. He dodged rocks, leaped logs, and only fell twice. Miku was next. He solved the puzzle, arranging stones to match a pattern by accidentally kicking them into the right formation. Nobody questioned it. Then came the final stretch. Tinku ran with all his energy. His legs were short, his speed questionable, his determination unmatched. He passed a baby hyena, then a warthog piglet, then a meerkat who was busy arguing with his own tail. The finish line was close, but a young leopard cub was also racing for the win. The crowd held its breath. Tinku pushed harder. His tiny paws pounded the earth. Come on, Tinku! Everyone shouted, even the tortoise. And just when it seemed the leopard would win, Tinku tripped, again. Spectacularly, dramatically. The kind of trip that makes you question physics. He rolled once, twice, 3 times, flew a little, and landed exactly on the finish line, ahead of the leopard. Silence. Then, the loudest cheer in Savannah Games history, the lion cubs had won. Not by skill, not by speed, but by pure, unstoppable, unbelievable Tinku-style chaos. Piku and Miku tackled him in a hug. Sultan roared proudly. Ronnie cried happily. Chicky danced on a tree. Even the peacock announcer fainted dramatically from excitement. The cubs stood on the winner's platform, medals around their necks, hearts. Piku said something. Guys, I think we actually did it. We did? We're champions. Tinku raised his medal high. I'd like to thank Gravity, he said confidently. The crowd exploded in laughter. And under the shining moon, the 3 lion cubs, once the funniest troublemakers in the savannah, became legends. Not because they were perfect, but because they never stopped trying, never stopped helping, and never stopped being themselves. Somewhere out there, the Great Savannah Games community was already preparing next year's special event.